Mehmed II, Ottoman Sultan from 1444 to 1446 and from 1451 to 1481. A great military leader, he captured Constantinople and conquered the territories in Anatolia and the Balkans that constituted the Ottoman Empire's heartland for the next 4 centuries. He was the 4th son of Murad II. At the age of 12, he was sent, as tradition required, to Manisa with his 2 tutors. The same year, his father set him on the throne at Edirne and abdicated. During his first reign, August 1444 to May 1446, Mehmed had to face grave external and internal crises. The King of Hungary, the Pope, the Byzantine Empire, and Venice, all eager to take advantage of the accession of a child to the Ottoman throne, succeeded in organizing a crusade. Edirne was the scene of violent rivalry between the powerful Grand Vizier Kendarli Halil on the one hand and the viziers Zaganos and Sihabeddin on the other, who claimed that they were protecting the rights of the child sultan. In September 1444, the army of the Crusaders crossed the Danube. When the Crusaders laid siege to Varna, the reigning sultan's father was urged to come back from retirement in Bursa and lead the army. The Ottoman victory at Varna under Murad II, November 10, 1444, put an end to the crises. Mehmed II, who had stayed in Edirne, maintained the throne, and after the battle his father retired to Manisa. Zaganos and Sihabeddin then began to incite the child sultan to undertake the capture of Constantinople, but Kendarli engineered a revolt of the Janissaries and called Murad II back to Edirne to resume the throne, May 1446. Mehmed was sent once more to Manisa with Zaganos and Sihabeddin, newly appointed as his tutors. The Mehmed continued to consider himself the legal sultan. On his father's death, Mehmed ascended the throne for the second time in Edirne, February 18, 1451. His mind was filled with the idea of the capture of Constantinople. Europe and Byzantium, remembering his former reign, were then not concerned much about his plans. Neither was his authority firmly established within the empire. But he was not long in showing his stature by severely punishing the Janissaries who had dared to threaten him over the delay of the customary gift of accession. Yet he reinforced this military organization, which was destined to be the instrument of his future conquests. He devoted the utmost care to all the necessary diplomatic and military preparations for the capture of Constantinople. To keep Venice and Hungary neutral, he signed peace treaties favorable to them. He spent the year 1452 mainly in building the fortress of Bogaskizan, later Rumeli-Hizari, for the control of the Bosporus, and building a fleet of 31 galleys, and in casting new cannon of large caliber. He made the Hungarian master gunsmith, Urban, cast guns of a size unknown as yet even in Europe. Meanwhile, the Grand Vizier Kendarli argued against the enterprise, and during the Siege of Constantinople, April 6 to May 29, 1453, the opposing views were voiced in 2 war councils convened at critical moments. Zaganos vehemently rejected the proposal to raise the siege. He was given the task of preparing the last great assault. The commander-in-chief, Mehmed II himself, on the day of the attack personally directed the operations against the breach opened in the city wall by his cannon. The day after the capture of the city, Kendarli was arrested and soon afterward was executed in Edirne. He was replaced by Zaganos, who had become Mehmed's father-in-law. Mehmed had to consent to a 3-day sack of the city, but before the evening of the first day after its capture, he countermanded his order. Entering the city at the head of a procession, he went straight to Hagia Sophia and converted it into a mosque. Afterward, he established charitable foundations and provided 14,000 gold ducats per annum for the upkeep and service of the mosque. One of the tasks on which Mehmed II set his heart was the restoration of the city, now popularly called Istanbul, as a worthy capital of a worldwide empire. In order to repopulate the city, he deported Muslim and Christian groups in Anatolia and the Balkans and forced them to settle in Constantinople. He restored the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate and established a Jewish Grand Rabbi and an Armenian Apostolic Patriarch in the city. In addition, he founded and encouraged his viziers to found a number of Muslim institutions and commercial installations in the main districts of Constantinople. From these nuclei, the metropolis developed rapidly. According to a survey carried out in 1478, there were then in Istanbul and neighboring Galata 16,324 households and 3,927 shops. 50 years later, Istanbul had become the largest city in Europe. The capture of Constantinople bestowed on Mehmed incomparable glory and prestige and immense authority in his own country, so that he began to look upon himself as the heir of the Roman Caesars and the champion of Islam in holy war. It is not true that he had preconceived plans for his conquests, but it is certain that he was intent upon resurrecting the Eastern Roman Empire and upon extending it to its widest historic limits. His victory over the Turkmen leader Uzun Asen at the Battle of Bashkent in Erzincan, August 11, 1473, marked in Mehmed's life a turning point as important as the capture of Constantinople, and it sealed his domination over Anatolia and the Balkans. Mehmed had assumed the title of Kaiser-i-Rum, Roman Caesar, and, at the same time, described himself as the Lord of the two lands and the two seas, a designation that reflected his idea of the empire. During the quarter century after the fall of Constantinople, he undertook a series of campaigns or expeditions in the Balkans, Hungary, Wallachia, Moldavia, Anatolia, the island of Rhodes, and even as far as the Crimean Peninsula and Otranto in southern Italy. This last enterprise, 1480, indicated that he intended to invade Italy in a new attempt at founding a world empire. The following spring, having just begun a new campaign in Anatolia, he died 25 kilometers from Constantinople. Gout, from which he had suffered for some time, in his last days tortured him grievously, but there are indications that he was poisoned. The conqueror reorganized the Ottoman government and, for the first time, codified the criminal law and the laws relating to his subjects in one code, whereas the constitution was elaborated in another, the two codes forming the nucleus of all subsequent legislation. In the utterly autocratic personality of the conqueror, the classical image of an Ottoman Padishah, emperor, was born. He punished with the utmost severity those who resisted his decrees and laws, and even his Ottoman contemporaries considered him excessively hard. Nevertheless, Mehmed may be considered the most broad-minded and free-thinking of the Ottoman sultans. After the fall of Constantinople, he gathered Italian humanists and Greek scholars at his court. He caused the Patriarch Gennadius II Scholarios to write a credo of the Christian faith and had it translated into Turkish. He collected in his palace a library of works in Greek and Latin. He called Gentile Bellini from Venice to decorate the walls of his palace with frescoes as well as to paint his portrait. Around the Grand Mosque that he constructed, he erected 8 colleges, which, for nearly a century, kept their rank as the highest teaching institutions of the Islamic sciences in the empire. At times, he assembled the ulam, or learned Muslim teachers, and caused them to discuss theological problems in his presence. In his reign, mathematics, astronomy, and Muslim theology reached their highest level among the Ottomans. And Mehmed himself left a divan, a collection of poems in the traditional style of classical Ottoman literature.